This is Harry Judd for Boxing Social in association with Betfred with one and only Shane Watson from SJAM. How's life treating you, Shane?
Very good, mate. As good as it can be. Very busy. Got a lot of stuff going on at the moment. All good, positive stuff with SJAM. Got some big fights coming through. Got some big fights already coming up. Got a big August for the company and for the fighters and whatnot. Yeah, all really good, mate. Can't complain, really.
Yeah, busy weekend. Heard you were part of the charity football match at the weekend in Essex.
Yeah, really good cause. Mark Potter, ex-British and Commonwealth title challenger, Danny Williams, famously got knocked out by him with one arm, actually. But yeah, really good guy, and he's battling a very severe type of cancer at the moment. I think it's spread recently, actually, which isn't ideal. But yeah, it's really good to go and support the cause, have a good day out. The weather was great, good game of football. I think we won 8-2, something like that. Can I say, when both those goals were scored for the other team, I wasn't actually on the pitch and I'm a centre back, so not to put anything out there. And they had David Bentley on their team, played for Tottenham, Raw Fox, he played for Newcastle. They had a few other decent players as well, and they couldn't get past me. So just putting it out there, anyone looking at a decent level wants to pay me to pay for them, I'm available, but I'm not cheap. But no, I'm joking. But yeah, no, it was really, really good, really good, really good cause. Really good to catch up with some faces I haven't seen for a long time as well. And even the most important, he raised a lot of money. I think what's it, towards £9,000 or something raised for Mark Potter, which will probably take a bit of pressure off him and his family for a bit, which is good.
I know a few stars were there. You mentioned David Bentley, obviously ex-England as well. You didn't mention that renowned footballer. Also, Johnny was there watching. I heard he wasn't obviously taking part because obviously he's fighting in Sheffield next week. But one and only Ben Davison played. Can you tell me how he performed?
Yeah, do you know what? Yeah, I don't know. He said he played for Chelsea back in the day. I mean, I think it probably could be true. He wasn't bad, but I wouldn't say he was exceptional. But he hasn't played in 10 years, so I mean, anyone who hasn't played football for 10 years probably ain't going to be anywhere near as good as what he once was. Even I didn't play in 2 years, and it's little things that I forgot for like the first couple of minutes I was on. Like I wasn't watching the line as good as I could, and things like that. It just takes time to get it all back. So if you haven't played in 10 years, I can't imagine like the amount of stuff he must have thought. But he was all right. He was good at like laying the ball off. He was quite good at laying the ball off. I'll give him that. I'm trying to. He had a poor shot on target, just literally rolled down. That wasn't great, but but no, he's good. He's all right. He's all right. I could see that he probably did play a decent level 10 years ago if he hasn't played for 10 years.
Like you said, a busy few weeks with SJAM and your fighters. Johnny Fisher is out next week in Sheffield. The Romford Bull Army head to Sheffield. Do you know how many tickets? How many tickets have they sold at the moment? Do we know?
I think he's done up to 800 at the moment, and they could push towards 900, 1,000 for the fight. And even though that sounds crazy to say it's not as much as before, because it's still a crazy amount of tickets, it's because on that day, right next to where Johnny lives. Yeah, so it just sounds like crazy to say it's not as much as before and whatnot, because that's still like, even that's one of the biggest in boxing in itself. But yeah, we've got We Are Festival the same day, which is a festival that's actually right around the corner from Johnny's house, which people would have booked from like a year in advance because it's a big festival. So I think that's affects them a little bit. Obviously, summer people go on holidays, people can't, or if they're going on holidays, we can't afford to do a couple of nights in a hotel and pay for a ticket to go to the boxing, and you've got to pay for your drinks and whatnot and all that as well. But yeah, so it's still a really good response from Johnny, as we expect. It's got fans all over the country as well. It's not just from Essex. So still really, really good, really impressed. Looking good in training as well. Got a decent opponent who's never been stopped or even been dropped before, and he's fought guys that have fought for titles and stuff. So yeah, it should be an interesting good night, really.
How is it bringing up young heavyweights at the moment? Obviously, the British title is going to be fought between Nathan Gorman and Fabio Wardley. Yeah, does that open it up a little bit to do with the next phase of the British heavyweights?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in some kind of way, but I think Johnny is, for our plans as it is at the moment, he's still quite a way off of fighting for a British title because, listen, like I said before, he never really had a proper amateur career, and even when he did fight as an amateur, when he was younger, it was kind of broken up a lot.
Mm.
So it would be a bit foolish to put him in that level, like, and he's still so young as well, like, because then you got to keep operating that level. Then next it's like European and things like that, and it's like just isn't ready for that yet. So he's doing all of his learning in sparring and things like that. That's where he's doing his almost like apprenticeship, should I say? So maybe in like the next 2 years, 3 years, we'd look at something like a British title for Johnny.
Mm.
But I think more like now, that's who's edging towards that is Solomon Dacres. I think we're gonna put forward for him to fight for the English in his next fight. Matchroom are putting together like a package to the British Boxing Board control, but for an opponent and a date that hopefully works out for them, and hopefully that can get accepted. If not, we're gonna have to find someone else. But yeah, I think more for Solomon Dacres is more the title level next.
And you mentioned before this call, you won't be heading to Sheffield next week. You'll be going out to Vegas with Joe.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah, tell me a little bit more about that, really.
So yeah, Joe picks up his training camp again. So one thing we've said and we promised to Joe is we're going to keep him active. He's injury free, coming off his last fight. Obviously broke his arm earlier in the year, at the beginning of the year, sorry. And yeah, and he's fully fit again now, strong, ready. He's had a nice little holiday and a nice break with his girlfriend. And now he's ready to go again. And we're ready to put him in a big fight, whoever it may be. September the 24th. But yeah, we're working on something now, and I think we're in the closing stages of that as well. But yeah, all to be revealed soon. But Joe's going to be in a good and big fight in September, and we're just working at finalising it all now.
I obviously don't ask you to mention any names, but what kind of opponent can we expect for Joe Joyce?
No, we've said before, like, Hammer was drafted in. As much as I know that Hammer isn't world level, and I know that he had maybe had better days at the office and whatnot, but Hammer was still like European level heavyweight that has beaten some good names and is very tough and barely ever gets stopped. I think he'd only ever actually been stopped once in his career before that. And that, oh no, sorry, twice. But the Fury fight is one that the Fury failed the drug test afterwards, wasn't it? So the only other one was his debut and he got stopped in like the first round. And then he's shown his resilience and how tough he is ever since then, basically. So for Joe to get him out there in 4 rounds was impressive. And it was just more of a fight to give Joe some rounds and get him back in the ring, really, because the whole Parker fight fell through. We didn't intend on fighting Chris and Hammer originally. It's a very expensive training camp going to Vegas, you know, so you only really want to do camps there if it's going to financially make the money back for you and whatnot. And so obviously wasn't our intentions to fight Hammer, but, you know, things happen and we got Joe active, got him a good win. And now we're looking for an even bigger win and we're looking for a top 10 guy. So
you mentioned obviously the Parker fight did fall through. Is there any way that could be revitalized at some point?
Yeah, of course it can be, because WBO number 1, WBO number 2, you know, like, it just takes broadcasters to work together. I think making maybe a public offer probably wasn't the best idea for a promoter that you haven't worked with before. But you know what, we're all young, we'll make mistakes sometimes, so it's all good. But especially when they just tried to make the offer and tried to do a deal with Parker for so long. I mean, obviously going to get that back up a little bit, but yeah, it's a difficult one. I don't really want to say too much, but I think the fans are going to be very pleased with who they see Joe announced against.
And a person who will be or is pleased at the moment is obviously the Albanian king, Florian Marku, who finally gets his homecoming fight. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, do you know what? This is almost like a dream come true. Even though I'm not allowed to be there, which is a shame, because I'd love to be there for Florian on his biggest night, the night he deserved. But just to be a small part of that event, even from a distance, Florian Marku deserves it. He's built such a big fan base, a loyal fan base. He deserves to have that kind of reception that he's going to get, because it's not easy to build these things. It's so rare that you ever see it. I mean, apart from your Josh Warringtons, and even he can only do it if he's got a stellar name with him at that level. You know, he's got to fight people like Lee Selby, you know, grudge match to sell out a stadium in the UK and whatnot. Like we saw even against Mucho Lara rematch, I didn't sell out Headingley. It was a 10,000 there in the end or something like that. You know, so not many people can do it. But but Florian is going to do it, and he's going to sell out the national stadium in Albania. He's fighting for the WBC silver interim title, so I'll get him a top 10 rank in the WBC, as well as he's one that he's got in the IBF. I know, I think he's 12 in the IBF, but I think they haven't done his ranking towards from Chris Jenkins fight yet, so I expect him to enter the top 10. So yeah, no, it's really good for him, and it's going to be a great occasion for him. He's got a good opponent who's only lost twice. He's got a good amount of wins and quite a few knockouts as well. He's Mexican as well, and you can't ever underestimate them. As we know, they've done a lot of damage to UK fighters over the last couple of years. But so yeah, it's really, really good. I can't wait for it to happen for him, and it's going to be a big occasion for him. I hope it doesn't let the occasion get to him, so it affects his performance, because it's going to be hard for it not to. Can't imagine what the noise volume is going to be like in there. But yeah, no, I'm really, really excited for him. He totally deserves it, and I'm actually shame I can't be there, but it would be great either way. So I'm really happy for him.
Obviously, want to get your thoughts on the rumours still escalating. We don't really know where we are with it at the moment. We're still expecting some announcement on Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. What are your thoughts on that fight? Because originally Florian Marku was wanted to fight Conor Benn before, and that's still a fight which I think many fans still want, to be honest. But what's your opinion on the Benn-Eubank fight?
Yeah, I mean, like it's a difficult one, right? So I'm in two minds about it. So obviously, as a pay-per-view and like an absolute like crazy sized fight, it is unbelievable, like an unbelievable fight. Like it's going to do crazy numbers. It could probably sell out most stadiums in the UK. Obviously, the time of year they're going to have that fight is not going to be able to, because the Premier Leagues and stuff will be back on, and the weather will be horrendous probably. So probably it's going to have to be at the O2 or something, an indoor arena, isn't it? Unless they could have done it at the Principality, but I'm not sure if how that does there, but or if it's even available at that time of year, because it's got a roof on it. But it's a massive fight. Do I agree with bringing Chris Eubank down to his lowest ever weight at age 32? No. Do I agree with putting a rehydration clause in there? No. Right. So you're basically telling me you don't believe you can beat someone at their best. So you're now going to make them, you're going to handicap them, basically. And I don't agree with that, because now it's like, well, then you haven't really beaten them, have you? You've destroyed them and fought like a very weak version of them. You can't say how you're a killer and how you beat anyone and all this stuff and then do that. It doesn't really go hand in hand for me. I'm not saying he's actually said those words specifically, but he's made out that he's the top man in the division. That he can knock anyone out and all this stuff. And then you're basically going to get a shadow of that fire in there, because Chris Eubank struggled to make 160 in the past. He's had to go off and do a run and stuff and get back on the scales and make it and stuff like that, you know. So he clearly doesn't necessarily make 160 very easily. So at 32, when it doesn't get any easier, to be making 156, if that reported weight is true, and a rehydration clause, is absolutely crazy. And I hope he can make it. And I hope he can make it healthily as well. It's not even just about making a weight; it's about how he's doing it as well. It's not always a very safe thing to do. And people were saying, "Well, Conor Benn's got come up in weight." Come up in weight doesn't mean it's necessarily a disadvantage, though. Like, people need to get that out of their head. You don't know how he makes 147 and things like that. It's a fascinating fight, and I'll definitely be watching it. So I'm not saying that it's not got those kind of things, but I just don't agree with the whole weight cut and all that stuff. It's not really something that I think is safe, and it's not really something that, if you really believe you can beat someone, then why are you not fighting them fully fit and at their best? It's like you already know that you can't. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, it's difficult for Conor, because it is difficult. You know, if Conor does lose and he loses respectively, then I guess there's no real harm in it. But let's say he gets absolutely battered, then where does he really go from here?
Well, I think the thing is, I don't know if it will affect his ranking that he's got in the WBA, which I think is a good ranking now, because it's another weight division. You know when Cole Brook went up to middleweight and fought Golovkin, it was like, and he lost, and obviously the repercussions that were bad because of the injuries and stuff. But he still had the IBF title, welterweight, so he still went and then had a big fight with Errol Spence and stuff. So I guess if it's in that kind of sense and way, then it could be beneficial. But And if he beats Eubank, then like profile wise, he'll go through the roof only, and everyone will want to watch him and whatnot. So I think the kind of problem they're having with Conor Benn is selling tickets at the moment as well. Like, as much as they say about the Liverpool crowd he had, but he had like Katie Taylor and stuff in his undercard who were massive names, arguably bigger names than him, and definitely bigger ticket sellers than him on the undercard and stuff. So, obviously that all definitely helps. But as a standalone, I don't think Chris Van Heerden did very well and stuff like that. So I think they need this big kind of profile fight. And I think they're struggling to make the big fights from 147 because it's difficult. They're all with different promoters, especially where a lot of that division is with PBC. Be very difficult. So, and they only like make in-house fights a lot of the time. So, I guess it's just the biggest possible fight they could probably make for him.